What you call exhaustion is not the end of you. It is the moment when all the weight you carried in silence becomes too heavy to hide. It is the point where your strength stops pretending to be limitless and begins telling the truth. You feel it as a collapse, a slowdown, a fog settling over your thoughts. But beneath that fog, something deeper is moving, something that has been waiting for years for you to notice. A quiet shift, a subtle turning of the inner axis you forced in the wrong direction. You think exhaustion means you are failing, but actually it means your old way of living is failing. Most people never understand this. They assume tiredness means they need more discipline, more control, more pressure. But here is the truth. Your exhaustion is not a lack. It is a message, a signal that the way you have been carrying yourself no longer matches the person you are becoming. There is a moment in every life when the mind and the body stop cooperating with the version of you that no longer fits. You felt it as irritation over small things. You felt it as losing interest in what once motivated you. You felt it as that slow disconnection from routines that used to anchor you. At first you called it laziness, then burnout, then weakness. But beneath all those names was one simple truth. You were outgrowing the life you were forcing yourself to maintain. Most people panic when this happens. They think something is wrong with them. They push harder, hoping the old spark will return, hoping the old identity will click back into place. But the more they push, the heavier it becomes. Because the spark is not gone. It is simply moving to a new place inside you. You think this collapse is chaos, but actually it is correction. The beginning of inner alignment arriving through exhaustion because you ignored every softer signal before it. There is a moment, you may be in it right now, when exhaustion turns into clarity. Not the bright clarity that arrives with excitement, but the deeper clarity that arrives when everything else becomes too loud. You sit in your quiet moments and feel the weight of pretending. You feel the heaviness of old expectations that no longer make sense. You feel the pressure of being who you used to be long after that version of you expired. This is the beginning of your awakening, not the dramatic awakening people talk about. The real one. The one that starts when you no longer have the energy to lie to yourself. Exhaustion strips away illusions you used to protect. It removes the masks you wore to keep others comfortable. It exposes the truth you avoided. And at first that feels like breaking. But it is actually clearing. A slow clearing of everything false. You think you are falling apart, but actually you are being disentangled. You think you are losing your drive, but actually you are shedding the old meaning attached to it. You think your mind is failing you, but actually it is refusing to repeat a story that no longer belongs to you. Listen closely. When you say you are exhausted, what you really mean is that you have reached the boundary between who you were and who you can no longer continue to be. And that boundary always feels like collapse because collapse is the only language the old self understands. Here is what most people never realize. Awakening rarely begins with inspiration. It begins with depletion. Only when the old patterns drain you completely do you stop feeding them. Only when you are too tired to continue living the same way do you finally become available to something new. And there is a kind of honesty that appears only when your energy is low. It is the honesty you avoid when you are strong enough to run from yourself. But exhaustion slows you down enough to finally hear the truth. The truth that you have been carrying emotions you never processed. The truth that you were saying yes to too much. The truth that you were betraying small parts of yourself to keep your life stable. The truth that something inside you has been asking for change long before your body forced you to notice. And here, in this tired place, you are closer to awakening than you have ever been. There is a strange silence that follows deep exhaustion, not the peaceful kind, not the healing kind. A heavier silence, like standing in a room after a storm has passed. The air is thick. The walls are still trembling. Nothing feels fixed, but the noise that once drowned you is finally gone. And in that absence of noise, truth begins to surface. Small truths, old desires, quiet instincts you buried under responsibility. They rise slowly, as if checking whether it is finally safe to return. You may notice how certain things no longer bother you, not because you have become detached, but because you no longer have the energy to pretend they matter. You may notice how your tolerance for the wrong things has collapsed. You cannot force yourself into conversations, spaces, or roles the way you used to. That is not failure. That is alignment. Exhaustion removes the strength you once used to resist your deeper self. And here is a simple mass-market truth people rarely admit. You think you need rest, but actually you need release. You think you need motivation, but actually you need honesty. You think you need to regain control, but actually you need to stop controlling the parts of you that have outgrown their purpose. Most people try to get back to normal. But normal was the problem. Normal was built from outdated survival habits, inherited expectations, and versions of you that were never chosen with awareness. Normal was the story you kept alive long after it stopped making sense. No wonder you are exhausted. You were carrying a life that was too small for the person you are becoming. There is a point where exhaustion becomes more than tiredness. It becomes a doorway, not a glowing doorway, not a dramatic one, a quiet internal opening. You start noticing things you once ignored. The way certain people drain you. The way certain goals no longer spark anything real. The way you feel relieved, not sad, when old attachments loosen. This is not depression. This is clarity disguised as fatigue. Most people misunderstand this stage and label themselves as broken. Why am I like this? Why can't I push through? Why do I feel lost? But look more closely. You are not losing yourself. You are losing the story you forced yourself into. You are losing the emotional armor that once protected you but now limits you. You are losing habits that kept you small, quiet, manageable. And here is another truth. Growth often feels like losing interest in what once distracted you from your real life. Your exhaustion is not a malfunction. It is a recalibration. Your inner system is reorganizing itself, shedding old identities like leaves that no longer nourish the tree. From the outside, it looks like collapse, but your deeper self knows it is renewal. You do not need to force inspiration. You do not need to pretend you are fine. You only need awareness. The kind of awareness that does not demand solutions but simply notices what feels heavy, what feels hollow, what no longer feels yours, and what feels quietly right, even if you cannot explain why. This is your micro-practice. Simple, internal, subtle. When the tiredness rises, instead of asking, "How do I fix this?" ask, "What inside me is finally telling the truth?" Do not analyze. Do not argue. Just notice what rises first. That first answer is your beginning. Because awakening is not about becoming someone new. It is about stopping the performance of being someone you no longer are. You are tired because the performance is ending. You are exhausted because a deeper truth is breaking through. You are slowing down because your inner world is rearranging itself into a shape that can finally hold the life you want. You think this is collapse, but actually this is emergence. You think you are shutting down, but actually you are opening. You think this is the end, but it is the first moment you have been real in a long time. And once this part begins, the old version of you cannot return. There is something powerful that happens when exhaustion becomes too deep to ignore. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop performing strength you no longer feel. You stop returning to roles that have nothing to do with who you are now. Not because you suddenly became wiser, but because you no longer have the energy required to lie. Exhaustion strips away the illusions you once relied on. It does not ask for your permission. It simply removes what is false. You think you are shutting down, but actually you are waking up to everything you avoided. The truth begins to appear in unexpected places. You notice the emptiness behind certain ambitions you once chased. You feel the heaviness in relationships you have outgrown. You sense a widening distance between you and the habits that once defined your identity. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside, yet everything shifts on the inside. Here is what most people never see. Exhaustion is often the first sign that you can no longer carry the emotional weight of a life that does not match your inner reality. When you were younger, you could force yourself. You could outrun your own truth. You could endure. But endurance is not alignment. Endurance builds a life that looks stable from the outside but feels empty on the inside. You endured your way into routines, commitments, and expectations that no longer reflect who you are becoming. And now your system refuses to continue. This refusal feels like burnout, but it is actually self-protection. A quiet safeguard inside you whispers enough. Enough pretending. Enough holding everything together. Enough shrinking to fit environments that were never built for your real self. Here is where another mass-market truth enters. What feels like failing is often the moment your life begins to correct itself. You think you are losing direction, but actually you are losing the false direction that kept you away from your real one. You think you are fading, but actually you are shedding layers that were never authentically yours. You think you are weak, but actually you are too strong to continue betraying yourself. Exhaustion becomes a mirror, a sharp, honest one. It shows you what no longer works. It shows you which parts of your life survive only because you force them. It shows you where you pour energy into things that give nothing meaningful back. At first, the mirror feels cruel, but it is the most honest moment you have had with yourself in years. And honesty is the foundation awakening is built from. There is a moment on this path where you begin to question things you once accepted without thought. Why does this drain me? Why do I keep trying to prove myself here? Why do I feel relief when I imagine letting this go? These questions are not signs of collapse. They are the signs of rising awareness. They signal the dismantling of an old identity that no longer fits your inner truth. Most people overlook this stage because it does not look like awakening. It does not feel powerful or inspiring. It feels like a tired person staring at their life and realizing something essential has been missing. It feels like someone who no longer has the strength to maintain illusions. It feels like a soft breaking, a quiet unraveling of stories you built in survival mode. But beneath that unraveling is the blueprint of the person you were meant to grow into. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are exact. Because only at this level of exhaustion do you become willing to release what your stronger self would have held on to out of fear or habit. Listen closely. There is a turning point inside this heaviness. It happens quietly. You wake up one morning and realize you cannot return to the old rhythm. You feel a small but undeniable shift inside your chest. A direction without words. A sense that something is ending, and that you do not need to save it. You do not need to force a breakthrough. Your exhaustion is already creating one. It is dismantling everything that stood between you and your truth. It is removing the emotional noise that kept you distracted. It is softening the armor you once needed but no longer do. And slowly, almost gently, it is preparing you for the next version of your life. A version built not on pressure, but on alignment. Not on endurance, but on truth. Not on survival, but on awakening. There comes a moment, often in the quietest hour of your exhaustion, when something inside you shifts in a way you cannot ignore. You suddenly realize you are no longer trying to return to who you used to be. Even if part of you fears this change, another part feels relief, a release, a loosening of a grip you didn't even know you were holding. That old identity took effort to maintain. It required performance, pressure, and a constant return to stories that no longer reflected your truth. And now, for the first time, you are too tired to carry it. This is not weakness. It is transition. A quiet shift from holding on to letting go. Most people assume awakening feels like a burst of clarity. But the truth is simpler and more human. Awakening often begins when you no longer have the energy to resist the truth that has been waiting for you. You think you are tired of life, but actually, you are tired of the version of life that demanded you abandon yourself. You think you are losing passion, but actually you are losing the pressure that disguised itself as passion. You think you are breaking down, but actually you are breaking open. There is a kind of heaviness that appears when your inner world begins to rearrange itself. You may feel uninterested, foggy, emotionally quiet. But look deeper. This is what happens when the old wiring that kept you loyal to outdated patterns starts dissolving. Your system is resetting, slowly, subconsciously, preparing you for a new phase of your life, one you cannot access through force. Here is a mass-market truth that always lands. You think exhaustion means you cannot handle your life, but actually it means you can no longer handle living in a way that goes against you. And suddenly everything makes sense. Your body, your intuition, your mind. They have been trying to get your attention for years, not through inspiration, but through depletion. Because depletion is the only state where you stop overpowering the signals meant to guide you. There is a quiet turning point inside you right now. You may not recognize it yet, but you feel it. The old goals don't pull you. The old roles feel tight, like clothes that shrank. The old expectations feel heavy, like you are carrying someone else's story. Here's another simple truth. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are no longer trying to earn your place. You are no longer trying to rebuild the identity that collapsed under its own weight. This is the moment where awakening begins to shape itself inside you. You think this is the end of your energy, but actually this is the beginning of your truth. You think you are standing still, but actually you are standing on the threshold of a new internal landscape forming beneath your exhaustion. Here's another mass-market block people deeply resonate with. Most people feel lost right before they find clarity. Most people feel empty right before something real returns. Most people feel disconnected right before they reconnect with themselves in a deeper, more honest way. So look at your exhaustion again. Not as an enemy, not as a sign of failure, but as an invitation. An invitation to stop abandoning your needs, to stop carrying people who do not carry you, to stop building your worth on how well you endure the intolerable, to stop forcing yourself into shapes that protect everyone but you. You may not realize it yet, but your exhaustion is teaching you boundaries. It is teaching you truth. It is teaching you what your spirit will no longer tolerate. And slowly, without forcing it, you begin to choose differently. You begin to notice the conversations that drain you. You begin to withdraw from expectations that suffocate you. You begin to listen to inner signals you ignored for too long. This is the quiet rise before the shift, the moment where the weight does not disappear, but your understanding of it changes. You are not powerless, you are not done. You are standing in the space where your old self dissolves, and your new self has not yet spoken, but is already forming. Stay here for a moment. Do not rush this part. It is the most fragile and the most important stage of awakening. The place where everything false begins to fall away, and everything real starts to grow roots inside you. There is a moment, quiet, subtle, almost unnoticeable, when your exhaustion stops feeling like a collapse and starts feeling like a message. You wake up and the heaviness is still there, but something inside you has shifted. You are no longer trying to push it away. You are no longer blaming yourself for it. You are listening. And the moment you begin to listen, the exhaustion changes shape. It becomes direction. You start noticing small signals you used to ignore. A calm that appears when you imagine letting go of a certain responsibility. A sense of relief when you think about closing an old chapter. A quiet pull towards something simpler, truer, lighter. This is how awakening enters a human life. Not as lightning, but as permission. You realize you no longer want to return to the life that exhausted you. You realize you are not guilty for wanting something different. You realize your tiredness was never weakness, it was truth speaking through your body. Truth you were finally too tired to silence. And a new understanding begins to form. You think exhaustion is the end, but actually it is the point where your inner world stops tolerating the distractions that kept you from yourself. You think nothing is happening, but the deepest changes always begin in silence. You think you are losing your spark, but actually, You are recovering the part of you buried beneath survival mode. Here is the part most people never reach. The moment the exhaustion begins to lift, not because the world becomes easier, but because you become more honest. You stop saying yes out of fear. You stop chasing validation. You stop apologizing for needing what you need. You stop building your worth on how perfectly you carry weight that was never meant for you. And with each quiet shift, a small amount of energy returns. Not the frantic energy of trying to hold everything together. The clean energy of alignment. You feel it when you speak the truth even in small moments. You feel it when you rest without guilt. You feel it when you stop explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. You feel it when your body loosens, when your mind softens, when your inner world exhales for the first time in years. This is the beginning of your awakening. The real one. The grounded one. The kind that changes your relationship with yourself long before it changes your external life. And when this shift begins, something else happens. You start noticing what feels right. Not perfect, not impressive. Right. You begin to see the difference between what drains you and what strengthens you, between what you maintain and what maintains you, between who you pretend to be and who you are quietly becoming. You think exhaustion was a sign that everything was falling apart, but look again. It was the sign that everything false was falling away. You are stepping into a new space within yourself, a space where your choices come from clarity, not fear. A space where your voice becomes steady again. A space where you no longer abandon yourself to stay acceptable. A space where your energy rises in quiet, honest waves instead of forced intensity. And right here, in this exact moment, something important is happening. You are beginning to trust yourself again. You are beginning to believe that your inner signals were never wrong. You are beginning to feel, maybe for the first time in a long time, that you are allowed to stop hurting, just to keep up. This is where your awakening takes root, not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet permission to stop living against yourself. Before we close, pause for a moment. Notice the smallest truth rising inside you, the one you usually ignore. Hold it gently. This is your next step. If a single word from this touched you, share that one word in the comments. Let it mark your shift. You are not collapsing. You are clearing. You are not ending. You are unfolding. You are not lost. You are returning to yourself. Tune in, recalibrate, shift your frequency,